How about this Forbes story, huh?
All right, should I start reading this now?
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
good.
Forbes is revealing its
good.
annual list of the world's most powerful. I was caught up in the Kansas City story.
Yeah, I got
most
it.
powerful people. We are bringing it to you first on CBS This Morning. The magazine looked at many factors, including money and influence. 73 names make up this year's picks. At number 5, Chinese President Xi Jinping. Number 4, Pope Francis. President Obama comes in third. Number 2, German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And topping the list for the third straight year, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Luisa Kroll is assistant managing editor of Wealth at Forbes. We're pleased to have her here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Make the case as to why Vladimir Putin is more powerful than President Obama.
I think a lot has to do with how he exercises his power and his influence, whether it's in Crimea or in the Ukraine. He's not afraid to go out and exercise his power.
So it's
He
not a
has no
question of
checks
he's more
and
powerful.
balances.
So it's not a question of being more powerful. He's simply using it.
Yes, and that's one of the factors, how actively you use your power.
Right.
Obviously, Barack Obama has more checks and balances because of the way that the U.S. Has been set up in a much more democratic fashion.
And a less inclination to use it in the same
Exactly.
way.
But the president of the United States wasn't even in the number 2 position. You would think
No, that's
in
the
America.
first time since we've been doing the list that he actually falls, that any U.S. president falls out of the top 2 spots. Again, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that this is going to be his last year in office. He's a little bit more hamstrung, both domestically and internationally, and that's just a nod to his decreasing power at this time.
I was stunned by that because the U.S. economy is 5 times larger than the
Yes.
Russian economy. We spend 10 times more in the military than the Russians do. So how do you define power for this issue?
Well, again, it's money, it's the use of power, it's the spheres of influence, and it's the number of people. Obviously, it's also a subjective list, and you have to look at the fact that there are 30 Americans on this list, by far more than any other country. There are only 4 Russians. So I think it's not that we're saying the U.S. isn't powerful. It is definitely still the most powerful country. But in terms of the number 1 person in the way that Putin exerts
Let me talk about 2 on the list. Number 69 is Justin Trudeau, just got elected Prime Minister of Canada. He's new.
Yes, he is.
And number 72 is Donald Trump.
Yes. Again, I think he's a controversial one as well. He's just inserted himself into the dialogue of this country to such an extreme. He does have money. He increasingly has power and influence. I think it'll be really interesting to see if he's a one-hit wonder. I guess we'll come back next year and talk about and take a look.
But it's interesting, Louisa, because Hillary Clinton's also on the list as number
Yes.
58. She's described as a presidential candidate. He, at number 72, is described as an entrepreneur personality. Why the distinction there?
Well, I guess we're revealing a little bit about our take on some of this stuff, but clearly he is entertaining. He is a personality. He is a very wealthy entrepreneur.
And you say he wouldn't
We'll
have made
see.
the list 6 months ago.
No, he would not have made the list 6
Because?
months ago. He clearly was not influential enough. He has used his political candidacy to really insert himself into the country's dialogue, and he's gotten a huge amount of attention.
There are 9 women on this list.
Yes, only 9 women.
And who are some of the most notable?
Well, obviously, Angela Merkel, that's very notable. I mean, she's been the most powerful woman in the world for a decade, and she moves back to number 2. It's only her 2nd time that high in the ranks. That really is talking about her huge influence in Europe and her role, whether it's the refugee crisis, she's taking a very active role in inserting herself.
Right.
Again, whether or not that, what happens with that, time will tell.
Really
Thank you for
interesting.
coming.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for
being here,
having me.
Lisa. All right.